Kusile, good morning. Thank you for tuning in. It's a beautiful Friday morning. It's 6 o'clock on the dot. Wakey. This is Kusile Breakfast Show. Beginning of the weekend, my favorite day of the week. Good morning, Guni.
Good morning, Lulu. Firstly, I want to say congratulations to South Africa for qualifying for the next stage of the FIFA World Cup. Yes, the game was yesterday, but the news are still very fresh. You know, South Africans love to celebrate everything, and I know the parties this weekend will be crazy. It is payday. It was a payday week, and South Africa qualified. They are the most excited nation in the world.
So they in the last 32, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the first time ever.
First time ever for South Africa.
Celebrate.
I mean, they were looking to do that in 2010 when they hosted the World Cup in South Africa, but they couldn't. But still memorable there was that goal by Simphiwe Shabalala, which was the opener. An amazing goal. It is etched in our minds. We'll never forget that one. But Mokoena and the other boys in this year's team, they've been doing quite really well. We hope they can still continue to compete on a high level.
Yeah, Sabahalal Sela. They are our neighbors, after all, Sabahalal Sela. And it was beautiful to see people's statuses posting that they're actually watching Eswatini, that is Mgoni.
The game was beautiful on Thursday morning at 3 a.m. and indeed the whole of Southern Africa is still celebrating that. So congratulations, Bafana. We hope you can still go far in this year's tournament. It's a good morning indeed.
Yeah, that's right. This morning we'll be joined by Dr. Nomsa Treasure Masego. She recently graduated with a PhD in inclusive education. She's also a head teacher at the School for the Deaf High School in Mathetsa. On her academic journey and also in as a female, what kept her going to study for a PhD. She'll be joining us in studio at 6:30, and then later we'll be joined, and before that we'll be joined by the Senior Communications Officer here at Eswatini TV, Nomcebo Malinga. Eswatini TV was visiting different areas in the country. Bahambisa Mbilinda by Ipiako campaign. It has been concluded. My retailers on the Ipiako campaign.
Yeah, kanzike sitawuphinze sibuke indzaba lenkulu kakhulu, the 5th annual Southern Africa National Public Health Institute's regional meeting laba iqhubeka ngephansi kwesicubulo lesithi National Public Health Institutes, the cornerstone in advancing Africa's health security and sovereignty. Lokukhulu kakhulu ke lana babuka ukuthi siyaqhubeka nekubona emave emhlaba agrapplisha with infectious diseases la qhubeka nekuba ma outbreak. You will remember the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the most relatable one amongst all countries around the world. But of course, Ebola still being a problem in some African states, including the Congo and Angola. And therefore, that puts a strong mandate on Africa as a continent to strengthen its national public health institutes. The very important pillars there are specialized institutes that will have coordinated disease surveillance, that are going to have laboratory services lakhona sitawukhona kutakhela imithi yethu nema-vaccine ethu instead of waiting for emavela athuthukile ukuthi asiphe leyo mithi leyo. Kanti ke lawo mavela atawuqale attende wona abe priority ngoba phela nakunema outbreaks avame ukuthi bese asabalala umhlaba wonke sithi ke nathi sing Africa asibe nema laboratory services at sendlule kuma laboratory services emergency preparedness nakutaba ne emergency lekhona ingasikhanzi bese siyetfuka ayisikhanze sivele silungele lokho ke kubita ukuthi phinze kube netinhlangothi te public health research lesithi sezingeni lesetulu so tonke leto tinhlangothi leto titawuba strengthened ngalawo masu latawuphuma kulomhlangano lomkhulu. It's an exciting initiative indeed, and we hope that it's going to, give us the results. Let's for now go out for.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes after 6. We go for an ad break and come back with our first bulletin. Sibogati Nzaba.
Attention retailers, importers, clearing agents and customs brokers. All television sets and decoders entering the Kingdom of Eswatini now require mandatory ESTVA authorization before customs clearance. No clearance without valid ESTVA import permit. Don't risk delays at the border. Submit your application 24 to 48 hours before your shipment arrives. We process complete applications in just 1 to 2 working days. Our QR coded permits make the verification quick and easy. Always double check your HS codes and quantities for smooth compliance. The process is simple. Step 1. Submit your completed application form. Annex A with product line items for TVs, decoders, and commercial invoice. Step 2. Eswatini TV reviews and approves. Step 3. Make payment and complete verification. Step 4. Receive your permit. Step 5. Clear customs smoothly at the border. Make sure you have all your required documents, a completed application form, Annex A detailing your product line items, commercial invoice, valid TV retailer license, and letter of authority if applicable. Our permits feature QR codes for easy border verification. For assistance, email us at license@eswatinitv.co.sz or call our help desk. Apply before your shipment arrives. Ensure compliance and avoid delays. Remember, all TV sets and decoders entering the Kingdom of Eswatini must have a valid ESTVA import permit. Thank you. Act now.
Asipenze sinamukele na DJ Nzaba. Liphinile andvuna nkhulu umhlonishwa wathu lidladla lithi kuchekeka kwemindeni leminyenti kuleli kubangwa busweti. Ukusho lokho ngesikhathi yasukumisa ngalokusemthethweni isigaba sesibili season 2 wehlelo lohlanganisa imindeni yasebambaneni sebengumndeni lapho agcizelele khona ukuthi imindeni lesuke ivele kulolu hlelo kumele bese ithola nelusido kungaba ukuthi nje kwendiwa lolu hlelo.
Sacela sithi ekugcineni kufanele ukuthi si-identify lokhu lesikubonile ukuthi intervention singashiyi sentela lokuthi singabashiyi bathi bebatokondani lapha bathi sibashiye bathi ukuthi kutaba ne-intervention masinyane lati sifuna lokuba empowerisha ngoba uma ubuka lama differences abangwa nakuthi ngithathathani ibhice nani kanti uma siba encourage bachubeke batiphilise siyeke nathi siyobona sisheshe sende lama intervention
kuhle lokuthi sonke simaswathi sibone ukuthi lamanye amaswathi aphila kanjani
yes
sikwathi nokuthi sibambisana kanjani ngoba sonke simuntu munye siyadalana sonke nje noma ngathi bonke hlukene but somewhere down the line uthola ukuthi siyadalana. Live litawubona na mhlawumbe will have an outpouring empathy through the whole country.
Nakukhulunywa ngokuhlupheka kufunwa iminikelo. Nami nje isingiva ngiyatsinzeka. Kepha la don't want to overpromise. Inzaba lento ingihamba ngifaka etiko. As Minister of Education ngikhulume namakholoni officer ngikhulume nalabo guidance. Sibone ukuthi ngikuphi lesingaku process vivaneni. Njoba asho nje DPM lokuthi ufuna kube nama intervention.
Tekundiza kuleli eswakha ithi imisele ukuthi ilive laseSwatini libambe emazinga labhekekile ehlangothini lwetekundiza live lingasaleli emuva emsebenzini oqhubekako esikhumulweni setindiza eKing Mswati 3 International Airport lenkampani yethula ngalokusemthethweni iloli elihlangothi lweticishamlilo kulesikhumulo lenebuchwephesha lobusetulu leyadiwa nge-major foam tender.
Lamhla sihlangene nelitiko sihlangene nema-partners ikakhulu emergency response kuto launcha imoto yethu ya firefighting le inkampani ithengile lena itane buchwephesha lokusembili kakhulu kulandzela ukuthi imoto lebese sinato bese sicishe semuva ngeminyaka sethi icalene kuba nema faults so bese sicitha isikhathi lesinyenti ukhanze ukuthi setephukile ufuna ukuthi sidilungise lena ke lethengiwe nyalo ita lelizinga lelisetulu ngoba neku operator kwayo ita nema features nje lamahle kakhulu futhi ke lesingakuchaza ngale moto lesitoyethula lamhla imoto leyakhiwe specifically for KM3 airport lokusho sahlala phasi sakha ema specifications lata uqonzana nathi sase siyafuna ukuthi bobanda bangakhona kusakhela sabathola sabala nje konke ema international civil aviation organization standards leta nawo phinze safaka ne equipment le moto lena is not just a vehicle nje ita ne equipment futhi ilayisha lizinga lelisetulu kakhulu lemanti nana kulesithi firefighting foam phinze ne dry chemical powder. Le moto lena itana lushintsho lolukhulu in terms of compliance kakhulu ukuthi nyalo sitawukhona ukuthi sicomply to the requirements ngoba ayikhayo nguyelo establisha i-firefighting department in an airport aphize assethe nema standards. Lelizinga letanayo le moto le isho ukuthi lala sekunengoti khona endiza sitawukhona kusheshe sifike ngoba iyagijima futhi sitawukhona nesinase sifikile ifike isebenze masinyane siucime umlilo nabantu basheshe basitakale futhi ke lokunye lesingakubeka ngilokuthi i-airline kuze itokhona ku-operator nayifika at an airport ngilolunye elihlangothi lolu lwakafaya ukuthi kumenjani labafike balibuke lokusho ukuthi nyalo will be able to attract more airlines phinze ataba ne-confident kwawona lawa lesebenta nawo ukuthi vele sitabasita in case of emergency.
I-World Vegetable Center iqhuba umkhankaso wokuxhumanisa abalimi betibhid for temtsabu kanye nemakethe longumthuthukisi Mcebo Mnisi uthi sikhulu sidingo saletibhid for emakethe uthi ngeminyaka linani leliyaye lithingeke tibhid for letingalinganiselwa ku-45 million emalangeni kanti isibhid for lesiyaye sibe nesidingo lesikhulu ngumbhid for wetinthanga eminyakeni yamunye emakethe kuyaye kuthingeke linani lelingu-254,000 wama-kilograms.
Lapha Eswatini.
Kanti kunathi itemidlalo indifuna itemidlalo bongani nzima ithi itemidlalo tingathuthuka uma ngabe tinkampani letifana naboMola Sports tichubeka nekufaka imali kuto temidlalo indifuna bekhuluma emcimbini okhomelisa abadlali abahlabana emidlalweni noMola Sports National First Division lobanjole esibane sami ezulwini. Kanti ngale temidlalo sitiphetha lapho tindzaba tetfu sisasalekefu sabe masinyane.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Since the beginning of this week, Eswatini TV has held workshops with retailers under the Ipi Yako campaign. They have traveled all over the country, bahlanganisa bosomabhizinisi ukubachazela kabanti ngawo lo mkhankaso lona Ipi Yako campaign. We are joined by the Senior Communications Officer at Eswatini TV, Nomcebo Malinga, kuva ukuthi ngabe bosomabhizinisi bathini kahle kahle. What is the level of compliance from bona bosomabhizinisi? Nomcebo, very good morning and welcome to KBS. It's been a while.
It's been a while, and thank you so much for affording me this opportunity to just come and just spend some time with you this morning.
Yeah. So I've been seeing you on the news since Monday. The whole team, CEO, Communications Office. So it's in response from retailers, of course. This campaign was launched a while ago, last month. But in business.
Business ngicela nje ngeqala kwendlulisa kubonga lokukhulu kubo bonke bosomabhizinisi ama-retailers ethu lesibenzisana nabo sing-Eswatini TV. Lo mkhankaso lesimsukumisile ukuthi-ke siphusha naye i-no TV import, no TV permit, no import, Ipi Yako campaign. Isibonisile ukuthi kumgcwako sesiphume sing-Eswatini TV. Sihambe siyohlala phansi nawo ema-retailers across the country. So sifikile kaManzini, sicale khona eMbabane. Saya kaManzini, safika naseSpiki, safika eSteki, safika eNhlangano, namhla phinda siyabuyela kaManzini, siyachubeka nalapho siyabakhulumisa. Ema-retailers avelile lapho khona besibacele khona. Sibonga nje kakhulu participation. But what is very key that we need to understand is that we are starting this initiative. Eswatini TV sibambisene na ERS. But kumcoka kuzilama industry players lafaka ekhathi ema-retailers lawa lathengisa lama TVs nema decoders kuthi nawo sive imivo yabo because they are on the ground and ngibo futhi lapha thengisa lama TV and kube ngibo futhi laba interactor nalama customer la ngenako ede atothenga wona lama gadgets lawo. So for us to roll out this initiative, it's imperative ukuthi we make sure ukuthi we tick all the boxes, all the necessary stakeholders have been engaged. So this drive that we've been conducting this week, it has been very helpful. Kuningi lesikufunzile nathi sing-Eswatini TV ku ema-retailer ukuthi kahle kahle bona asebenza kanjena kukhona lapho khona sivuleke emehlo khona ngoba njengoba awadi nje ukuthi le Ipi Yako initiative sikhuluma ngeku importer ema-TV, sikhuluma nge-compliance, sikhuluma ngema-controls, lesitawa effecta kuma-border across the country. Likuyene sikuvile nje ukuthi sihlele nawo ukuthi labanye bakhona bachupha khona la ekhaya. Lapho khona sibonile ukuthi the industry is big now. We've got entities or wholesalers locally in the country that bring in lama TVs. So it's important ukuthi Peters engage even the wholesalers themselves. Sibafundise ngale initiative lesitobe siyilauncha on the 1st of July njengoba sathi nje ukuthi that is our go live. We are trying to encourage compliance and lesikubonile emakhona ema-retailers that are faithful ukuthi i-TV uma ngabe iyaphuma esitolo ayiphumi engakambhadali 180 emalangeni, ayiphumi engakambhadali 50 rand emalangeni. Kulabanye bokhanza ukuthi they have a shortfall bawakhokhe lama gadgets. Loko sekwendani sekwenda ukuthi le playing ground ayisasiko even ayisasiko level. So khona lomnye retailer nyalo sowendela phansi because yena wendeni ukhethe ukuthi abambise Eswatini TV ukuthi i-TV license ikoleke ikhona ukuthi ikoleke kahle. We are able to collect it effectively. Hence the introduction of this initiative. Uma ngabe ema-controls siyakhona ukuthi siwaqale siwa-implemente kuma-border. We now know ukuthi yonke i-TV leseyingenile into the country one way or another, that retailer or that reseller has to make sure ukuthi unayo import permit and every television set and decoder ifanele ukuthi ibhadaleke.
Yeah, ngisafuna nje ngena kulena mcebe ukuthi vele kuke kwavela kanenge lokho ukuthi labanye vele bebangabe compliant because
Yes.
makhelwane la eceleni akayibhadalisi imali ye TV license ngabe nibagcizelele nikuloko bakuveta into izathu ukuthi why vele bebakwenda ukuthi makhelwane ngala mina ngiyabhadalisa ngalana makhelwane akasabhadalisi wona mina ngisabhadalisa
Yes.
nibachazele nibomcwathi vele kumele ukuthi bayibhadalise le customer.
Sibachazele kakhulu lolu. I think ngiko nje kumcoka lokuthi lamavusela siwende time and time again with our retailers sita over ema challenges awo. I think nje kucucutela babukeli nje bayo Eswatini TV njengoba nje nyalo sikuye KBS ukuthi it is a responsibility yalo lonke liswati kuthi uma ngabe uyothenga iTV noma ngabe uyothenga idecoder kungumthetho weSwaziland weEswatini Television Authority Act of 1983 kuthi kufanele ukuthi kubhadaleke iTV license. Ubhadala iTV license because kunalombane lo wenda ukuthi that enables you ukuthi uthole leso sithombe ku TV yakho. Kulapanye ke banako ukuthi ke thina asayibuke ne TV we watch online or on the go. At the end of the day, whether you choose to absorb Eswatini TV, whether it does absorb on YouTube or you're absorbing us on the traditional screen, it's important that if you have a working gadget, a TV or a decoder, kumcoka ukuthi once a year uyamkhokha lo mthelo. So kucela nje emaswati ngoba sikutholile vele kuma retailers ethu ukuthi kuba khona lobugudlugudlu lobuba khona vele la editolo ukuthi neke mina ngiphethe 2000 ukuthenga na iTV sengithi 180 emalangeni. Kumbe le message ayingeni kumaswati ethu lamahle ukuthi ngumthetho lo ukude iTV lephumako. So siyacela lokucocodela vele ku emaswati ukuthi ke namhlanje noma kusasa utawusukuma uyongena esitolo uthi uliswati uyothenga yona le TV. Siyacela ukuthi umane ubambise umsakado westage ubambise nalo le live la kangwane ngoba iTV license idlala umsebenzi lomkhulu. It's not just ukuthi uthekhoka umthelo ukuthi uyaka TV yini. Yes, uta Eswatini TV. What are we doing as Eswatini TV? We are able to create emisebenzi, to create job opportunities. Siyibonile sing Eswatini TV and we are very proud of such successes. La faka ekhathi nje ukuthi we are able to bring premium content. La faka ekhathi bo ekhaya. We've got season 1 and season 2 and those are beautiful productions that have been enabled by what? By paying for Emma TV licenses. So not just saying Eswatini TV, we are empowered ukuthi ke sesiyakhona ku engage Emma independent producers. Independent producers now, they are also employers. They employ cast members. They employ script writers. We've got talented filmmakers. We've got talented sound engineers. We've got a whole booming industry like broadcasting Eswatini. We've got students from the local universities La Pumago each and every year. So what is that saying? We now have a pool of talent. Eswatini is in a space now whereby we are able to take more full wako or kona mobugala Eswatini TV from for your whole 24 hours ubukele in local content. We have that responsibility as Eswatini TV ukuthi each channel yethu ibe na 70% local content and 30% international content. So leto timaleto leti kokwa sive lo 180 emalangeni na 50 emalangeni wayo decoder. That is what we are doing. We are supporting the economy of the kingdom of Eswatini. We are empowering the broadcasting fraternity because it's huge and it needs to be supported. And it's ours. It is about time that we successfully and happily tell our own stories, and those stories being told by our own local people. We are already there. So le mali leyo masibuka isita lapho as well. So kucocodela nje go emaswati ukuthi siyacela ukuthi awabambise ema retailers ethu. Be uncomfortable Lulu if you're going to walk into a shop uyothenga iTV and then uphume ungakamkhokhi 180%. Take that responsibility yourself. Ngicela kushiya 180 ngibona ngathi okankhumbuti retailer X or retailer B. It's very, very important.
Yeah. All right. Okay, and also another important thing lengifuna sikhuluma ngayo asibambeneni sibonga umndeni it's been officially launched again. Sike sayibona TV program lebedlala la Eswatini TV program nje kuhlanganisa imindeni. It has been launched. Yabuya again. One of my favorites on Eswatini TV. So yini nje lesingayikhatha the season?
The season is awesome. Siyajabula kakhulu. Ngicela nje ngikubonga litiko la Honorable DPM lisebenza kakhulu ekuhlanganiseni imindeni kaNgwane. Isebenza kakhulu tiko lakhe la honorable DPM ngokuthi si improve impilo dawo eMaswati. Letindzaba lotibonako kulehlelo aningajabula nje ukuthi it's your favorite show. They are tear-jerking stories. Lokutshengisa ukuthi ke ema families ethu seMaswati societal values and norms asalahlekile. So leli hlelo lelo liyakhona lokuthi lis realign nesibandfu. Ukuthi ke what are we doing as family people? Because siyavuka siyemisebenzini si interact abantu but usuka kuphi usuka ekhaya so kumcwa ukuthi la ekhaya la ukukhula khona ube exposed to ukuthi ke injani your environment leyo. So the program is hot. We've got more real life stories and ama stories lasivula emehlo ukuthi we have a responsibility as society, we have a responsibility seMaswati ukuthi kumcoka ukuthi akube bhedo umfana lo lahlekako, akube bhedo umdali loba nemfana amkhohlwe kuthi wakawa nemfana amshiye kumflomdzala umflomdzala aswele kusomfana ngabe mina sengemkholisa ngani. So titori leto ngileta lesitibona nema messages lesitawabona kuyo I program asibambane sibe ngumndeni. We know it's going to premiere on the 1st of July, which is next week, Wednesday, at 8 p.m. on Eswatini TV. And good labo that are probably going to be on the go. Sita kona go live stream ako Eswatini YouTube channel at the same time. So it's not kona sitobe si chengisa I episode etfule asibamba nensibe ngumndeni. We are proud not to sing Eswatini TV nekubambisana naye EPIS anake ngemvalele ngaphandle. It was a very collaborative effort and isibonga na Minister of Education and Honorable Minister of ICT nabo labafikile bambambisa Honorable DPM konomsebenzi longaka and nabo bakhona kupledge I-support lapho khona bangakhona kusita khona kithi sing TV nabo sama business labavelile labafaka ekhathi bo EEC bo Kia bavelile wafaka ekhathi nabo MTN labatshengisile ukuthi banaso sifiso ukuthi nabo to advertise and to sponsor this program. So kucela nje naqoqotela the marketing fraternity ukuthi here's a beautiful product with a beautiful local story. Here's something that they can actually advertise and sponsor.
I think because the month of June is Children's Month and in some of the episodes so it launch during Children's Month. Student DPM, you know, during the launch of season 2.
DPM is still singing the same song. Ukuthi imendene ayibambane. Akube bede umfana noma umflomdzala lohluphekako batade abathatha irresponsibility ukuthi uma ngabe uyathi ukuthi sonaye umfana thatha irresponsibility and as much as ama challenges siyathi ukuthi ke akhona ukuvetile nje ukuthi ke kuna a high number or a percentage of unemployment kaNgwane. So vele akhona lawo ma challenges lawo ukuthi ukhanza ukuthi vele na ubukeke ekhini lakho uthi yathi angikhona kumondla lo mfana but mangabe ka awukhona kumondla lo mfana bona nawo ongumdali ngoba lo mfana uphuma kuwe wakho vele thatha le responsibility. Akhona ema entities lo ngawa approach alafa khathi lona office la ka DPM lo ngavela khona uNgqongqothe ukuthi athi nginenkinga la nginemfana but angisakhona kumondla engabe ngikuphi khona ngathola khona lisido. So uqhuqudele kakhulu vele ukuthi seMaswati abubuye lobuntu nakithi ukuthi asibanake imindeni yethu asibanake abantu bethu asibanake nebantu labadzala bubuye lobuswati kithi si understand lokuthi ke ema families amcoka and take care of each other. The challenges are there but ikhona iminyango lapho khona bangafinyelela kuyo.
Alright, thank you so much Nankuba sibonga kakhulu isikhathi sakho Mbukeli. Senior Communications Officer Eswatini TV namcaba Malinga sikhuluma nje ngebuhle labentiwa ngomsakazo yeSwatini TV. Siselekhe masinyane sitawuya sicubeke.
To connect to your smart TV, start by connecting your TV aerial or antenna to the port at the back of your smart TV. Step 2. Switch on your TV, press the menu button and navigate to settings. Step 3. From the settings menu, select channels and input and press OK. Choose channels, then select channel scan. Step 4. In the channel scan menu, select manual scan. Set the frequency to 570,000 kilohertz. Then press Search. Note: ensure the tuner mode is set to antenna, not cable, and the channel type is set to digital, not analog. Happy viewing!
All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Today we honor Dr. Nomsa Treasure Masego, who graduated with a PhD in Inclusive Education at the University of South Africa, a milestone that crowns years of dedication and resilience. Dr. Nomsa currently serves as a head teacher at the School for the Deaf, a high school in Mateta. More than her titles, Dr. Nomsa is also known as a stern advocate for the rights of persons with impairments. She joins me now in studio. Very good morning, Dr. Masego. Thank you for coming through to the breakfast show. First question, why this topic? What drew you to study the lived experiences of persons living with visual impairments?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. What really drew me to conduct a study on learners with visual impairments was the fact that at 12 years old, I started wearing lenses, which made me to be one of the people who struggled because I'm extremely myopic. And then at the age of 28, my optometrist told me that by the age of 40, my eyesight will shut down. So when I was taken to be deputy head teacher at St. Joseph's High School, I really saw that as an opportunity to work closely with the visually impaired, since they are part of the learners in the school. So I made sure that I wanted to understand them so that I could ensure that they too recognize their right to education.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's rare that a teacher has graduated with a PhD. What's encouraged you to push and never quit?
I think it's just passion within me. I just wanted to make sure that I realized that the learners with visual impairments at times couldn't be taught well because we didn't really understand them. So I took it upon myself to ensure that I had time. I looked deeper into them. I studied them, and here I am. I think also my supervisor, Professor Mbola Heni Omakove from the University of South Africa, he himself is visually impaired, but he is a professor, which is very unique. So I just decided that I'm just going to pursue this as well.
All right. So from your thesis, Dr. Masego, what are the three biggest inclusionary practices and also the three exclusionary practices that you found?
Inclusionary practices, I think we really have to applaud the government for ensuring that we currently have free primary education in the OVC fund. That's a step in the right direction. But then again, we're still struggling with these being of the right amount, because we realize this isn't sufficient, but still it is a step in the right direction.
Yeah. So what findings in your research shocked you the most, about the situation in Eswatini when you speak of inclusivity?
With regards to inclusivity, the learners are really struggling to be included into the schools. Sometimes they are within the inclusive school, but when you look deeper, you realize that they are not so much included. A good example will be the teachers do not know Braille. Within the inclusive school where we've got learners with visual impairments, you find that the teachers themselves don't know Braille. So you understand in a classroom, sometimes we've got classworks. The teacher has to give out classworks to the students, and once they give out the classwork, the teacher is supposed to be marking the classwork. But what happens is that the learner writes in Braille, gives the teacher has to take that assignment, give it to the resource department, who are going to transcribe from Braille to writing.
It's a whole process.
It's a very lengthy process, which eventually makes the student to delay getting feedback. The class moves on to the next lesson. Maybe the feedback hasn't been received from the resource center. That's what really, really shocked me. And also realizing that the teachers are not trained on special educational needs. They're not trained on inclusive education. They struggle on a day-to-day basis. I really believe that they should be getting help with regards to that, so that they're able to succeed and assist the learners.
Yeah, so what kind of help, Doctor, what must be done now, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say about the Eswatini schools with regards to inclusivity?
Inclusivity. I think it's very difficult for me to speak about inclusivity and leave out School for the Deaf. Even though I've worked at St. Joseph's, I've worked at School for the Deaf. I think the first thing is teacher training. We've got to ensure that the teachers are trained, they are capacitated, they know how best to handle the situation. And I think we need psychologists within the schools because some of the learners really need psychological help. The teachers as well. You know, the load of being in an inclusive school really weighs you down at a point in time, and you need some outlet where you can let go and, yeah.
So what's the situation like, having deaf learners, bonke bamfana esikoleni ba deaf, what's the situation at the School for the Deaf right now?
School for the Deaf is a very tight one with the issue of sign language. Currently, the kingdom doesn't have a curriculum for sign language. They're still crafting the syllabus. You go to School for the Deaf, you're a teacher, you're not trained on sign language, which is a very big hurdle. You know the subject content, you know what you want to teach the learners, but the issue of imparting, how do you impart to the learners, how do you communicate with the learners, it's a very big hurdle, which I think should be attended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you reckon teachers should be trained?
I believe
on
teachers have to
teaching
be
deaf
trained.
learners with visual impairments?
Definitely. They need to be trained on inclusive education as a start-off, be trained on special education needs. At School for the Deaf, they need to be trained on sign language. Similarly to School for the to St. Joseph's, they need to know how to read Braille, how to write Braille, how to transcribe Braille, so that when the students write, they're able to transcribe it immediately into Word and mark instantly, so that they get feedback and they can move with the class at the right pace instead of them being left behind. The class moves on. Even with the tests or assessments, you can imagine the teacher has to make the assessment, take it to the resource center. It has to be brailled, comes back to the teacher, the learner is given, goes back again for it's a very lengthy process, which really affects the teaching learning process.
So comparing with other schools in the region, SADC region, Doctor, I mean, you've done your research, you've probably seen how other countries do it, when it comes to inclusive learning. What's missing in Eswatini? What needs to be done, in particular, for the School for the Deaf?
I believe with School for the Deaf, I've said already, it's the teacher training. It's making sure that there is support for the learners. By virtue of us having one deaf school, one deaf primary school, and one deaf high school is a big challenge for Eswatini. It really means a child who's 3 years old, by virtue of the child being deaf, has to be taken to School for the Deaf for preschool, School for the Deaf primary for preschool. This child is literally plucked out of their mother's womb because they've got to go to school, and it's really not fair. As a parent, you have a right to parent, a right to make sure that you have a good relationship with your child, and the parents sometimes don't have enough money, so it means they take the child at the beginning of the term. They're going to be seeing them at the end of the term, which is quite lengthy. Also, the parents don't know the sign language. I really would have to applaud the efforts of the Deputy Prime Minister, who has made sure that she gives sign language classes to the parents. But sign language really has to be from within. It's got to be, in as much as you are taught sign language, but you've got to make sure that you've got an oomph to want to learn sign language. Yeah. Learning a language is not an easy thing. So by virtue of the parents not knowing the sign language is a very big hurdle. Just today, they're leaving for midterm break, and as they go, some of them are going to be ending talking when they leave the school gate. During the entire time they're at home, they're not talking. So others don't know.
With their parents?
They're not. They can't talk to the parents. They can't talk even to the families. So you find that at home, the only thing that they can just say to the child is, "How are you? How are you? I'm fine." It's just those little words. And, when the issues that the parent has to parent and talk to the child, they struggle.
So it's even hard for them to express their feelings.
Definitely.
They feel much safer at school where they can communicate with their peers or their teachers.
Exactly. I can make an example. Maybe a child wants to say to the parent, "Please buy me a pair of pants." They're not able to communicate that. And can you feel the pain of when schools open, the parent comes with the child and says he or she was trying to say something, but I couldn't understand. You ask the child, I needed a pair of pants. And here's the parent, can't even go back to get the pair of pens because they really, really can't communicate. It's the start of line. You know, as a parent, you should be able to impart values. You should be able to impart whatever you want to your child. But once you can't communicate, it's a very big hurdle.
Yeah. So is sign language taught well enough, Dr. Masego? Should it be like a school subject for all learners in Eswatini?
Definitely. I'm very, very proud that Eswatini has a curriculum framework that has put up sign language as a subject that should be taught in schools. But I do realize that there is a possibility that there are schools that could be teaching sign language, could be the deaf schools, because I think we're starting off. But hopefully, as we progress, we're going to be having other schools within the country who are learning sign language, because we need to make sure that these children are incorporated into the system. They too can lead normal lives.
Yeah. I know, Doctor, may be putting you into the spotlight, but let's talk about the strengths, that these learners have. You've been with them for what, over 5 years? What are some of their strengths? Surely there are some.
Yeah, there are strengths. I would say they're hard workers. Because School for the Deaf has got two different departments. We've got the academic stream, which takes learners like in the academic pathway, the Form 1 to Form 5, the usual Form 1 to Form 5 that we know. Yeah. Then we've got the vocational stream, which is a stream that accommodates learners who are not so much well performing with regards to their education. We've got skills that are imparted to them that are like welding, building, electrical, saloon, baking, just to make sure that at the end of the day, they too can earn a decent living.
Yeah. So is it okay for them to be just deaf learners? When you talk about inclusivity, does it necessarily have to be only deaf learners, or it can just be normal children with perfect hearing aid? How do you feel about them being all alone?
That one is a very sad one. It's a very sad one because by virtue of the learners being taken to School for the Deaf, it really means they are stigmatized. They are aside. They can handle themselves. They're just a group who are on their own, because School for the Deaf only admits learners with hearing impairments. So basically meaning we put them on the side there at School for the Deaf. But after school, they need to come back. When they finish school, they need to come back and join society. And society is not so much used to them. The way they think they're on their own, they grew up as outsiders with regards to the entire community.
Yeah.
So in my take, I believe that they should be incorporated. We do have examples within the region. Botswana, for an example, they have schools whereby these learners are they're in mainstream, they're included into mainstream education. It is possible and can be done.
Okay. So, Doctor, do you think we should recruit more teachers who are deaf or blind? What barriers, could stop them?
Definitely. I believe the kingdom has to make sure that the teachers that are taken to School for the Deaf, firstly, they should have sign language. SWA's a sign language. We need to make sure that they can be able to talk and communicate with their learners and make sure everything is.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about now some of the challenges. You did say that when they leave school, as you said, they're leaving school today for their midterm break, and communication is a barrier, of course, bus rank, on their way home. What do you normally advise them to handle, most situations? Because, a bus rank is, so many people, it's crowded. Lumsindo, does it not, somehow irritate them?
Okay. For some of the learners, the parents have to really fetch them from school, because some have got multiple impairments. We've got to make sure that they're assisted by their parents. But for some, we usually promote that they move in groups. If we know that maybe they're going towards peak, we make sure that as they leave the school, they go in groups so that they can be able to assist each other. Their level of comprehension is at different level, so it does help. Those that are ahead can be able to go ahead and assist the others so that they reach home.
Yeah, it's difficult. So, moving along, Doctor, as a PhD graduate and a head teacher, of course, what barriers have you faced, during your course, and as head teacher that men face?
I've had
faces as a female that men don't face.
I think just being a head teacher is in the yesteryears, I think most of the head teachers were males. It has just been in the upcoming years whereby we see the younger generation coming in. But it has been a very long road getting to school for the deaf without any sign language, having to overcome. I'm currently doing level 2 for sign language because I still feel I need to be fluent. I still need to be able to stand out there, make conversation, make a speech, be able to communicate clearly with the learners and be heard within the deaf community and outside.
Yeah, so in the coming years, probably 5-10 years, what would make Eswatini schools, what change would you wish to see that would make you say your PhD was worth it?
I think what would make me feel that we have scored as a country is to see Eswatini really embracing inclusive education, not to have it on paper. Make sure that we practice it within the schools. Some of the schools are inclusive schools, but when you get to the school, you realize, even though it's an inclusive school, the learners are not included into the school. Yeah. They are still out there, like at St. Joseph's. You realize that there are things that have to be attended to make sure that the learners with visual impairments are accommodated with regards to toilets, with regards to the infrastructure, just to make sure they can move freely outside. We've got learners with using wheelchairs. They've got to be able to move around, reach all the departments, reach all the playgrounds, and be able to be like the other learners.
And how many schools provide this?
For learners with visual impairments, I think we currently have 3 schools, 3 high schools. I'm not sure about the primary schools that can really handle the learners.
And it should be more?
It should be more. I believe, rightfully so, it should be something like about 7 kilometers for a learner to be able to leave home and arrive at the school. So it has to be any school that the child can be able to access.
Yeah. So is the school for the deaf not overcrowded? How many learners are currently schooling there?
No, school for the deaf is currently not overcrowded. We've got a total of enrollment of 73 learners, which encompasses all the learners that are within the school. And I am not sure if those are all the high school learners that we have. Because in some regions, parents have a tendency of hiding their children. Yes, and I really would like to really ask Eswatini, if you look around the region, you'd realize that deaf-blind children, but I'm realizing we still don't see deaf-blind children. And my question is, does it mean Eswatini currently doesn't have deaf-blind children, or does it mean we are hiding them somewhere, back at the homes, hiding somewhere there? Because we could be thinking...
You see that happening often. Do they attend meetings at school?
The parents? They do, but often because of the travel distance, they can't really come. They send others to come along. Sometimes they send the grandmothers, the fathers, and... Yes.
All right, so now that your PhD is done, and congratulations to that, what next do you want to study?
I just have to make sure that I write articles. I've got to make sure I am kept on the breast up there, because with PhD, if you stop writing, you really perish.
Yeah. So if you had time with the Minister of Education, Dr. Masego, with your top request for learners with visual impairments, what would be your ask?
More schools, teacher training, and make sure that the grounds within the schools are properly taken care of. Policies on learners with impairments, policies specifically looking into the different kinds of impairments, looking into learners with visual impairments, learners with physical impairments, and looking at all the other types of impairments, so that we are able to know exactly what is expected and how best as schools we can try and support and accommodate the learners.
Yeah. So speaking of success stories, do we have like 1 or 2 students that have become successful, that were School for the Deaf learners? Yeah.
Yeah, School for the Deaf started operating, School for the Deaf High started operating in 2010, and we are very proud. Just yesterday, we were bidding farewell to a group of learners who are student teachers. We've got a group of 5 learners. 4 were at their primary school, They're all ex-students of School for the Deaf High and School for the Deaf Primary, and one was at the high school. So for the first time, we've been able to take 2 learners to Ngwane Teachers Training College. We've taken 2 learners to SANU, 2 learners to ECOT. One has already graduated, and we had 2 learners from the vocational department who went to Ngwane Park Training Center, and they've been able to complete. So those are our success stories, and they've been able to be role models to the learners. Yes.
Yeah. So what advice would you give a 15-year-old learner who has a disability and also wants to, attend school and be successful, just those you've listed?
In the yesteryears, we all thought it was going to be very difficult for these learners to learn. But now we've got success stories, and yes, it is possible. With impairments, with whatever kind of impairment, it is possible. You can still make it. So long as you put hard work, so long as you're resilient, so long as you dedicate yourself into your studies, you still can pass, regardless of you having an impairment.
Definitely, all right. Thank you, Dr. Masego, for this, and all the best for your further studies. That was Dr. Nomsa Masego. She recently graduated with a PhD in inclusive education at the University of South Africa, and she's a head teacher at the School for the Deaf in Matsheta High School. Just talking about her achievements and her love for children with disabilities and visual impairments. Let's go for an ad break, return shortly.
Countries are eliminating diseases all over the world.
In fact, in the last 5 years alone, 44 eliminations have been confirmed by WHO.
There's one disease that, because of a global effort, no one can get anymore. Do you know which one it is? If yes, please write it down in the comments and we'll talk about it in this episode. We are talking about disease elimination today. What does it take to eliminate a disease on the ground? And what needs to happen before WHO can confirm that a disease has been eliminated? We are talking to Dr. Jerome Solomon. Welcome, Jerome.
Welcome.
Jerome, what are these diseases that have been eliminated in the past 5 years?
So many diseases, like tropical diseases, have already been eliminated. 50 countries, for example, already eliminated at least one neglected tropical disease. So that's a huge success, and because it's a very heavy burden for the population. Malaria, 45 countries already eliminated malaria, thanks to all the tools that are available. Vector controls, insecticides, bed nets, chemoprophylaxis, treatment, and now we have 2 vaccines to protect children. Important point, how we want to protect, for example, pregnant women transmit infections to their babies of HIV, hepatitis B, syphilis. We are working with many countries to eliminate this vertical transmission of very important disease. And something that maybe a lot of women don't know, we can prevent cervical cancer thanks to vaccination. We have a lot of examples, and we are very, very hopeful that we will eliminate 32 diseases in the next decades.
So what needs to happen on the ground for a disease to be eliminated and for WHO to confirm that it has indeed been eliminated?
When we say elimination, it's eliminating a disease as a public health problem, as a public health concern in a region or in a country. It's a huge work because we need a strong political commitment coming from the head of state and ministries, of course. WHO is helping a lot in terms of technical assistance and guidance. We are working, for example, with education department, with agriculture department, with environment, because it's a global health, it's a One Health approach. And then the local level is the most important one, because we need to have the villages, the chiefs of the villages, the communities involved and engaged. We need also NGOs, we need the strong voice of people with lived experience. We need the young people to be also very committed to explain, to share their experience, to adapt the tools to all the populations, because we need to work without any stigma, without any discrimination. and we need all the populations to be fully engaged. We have a very important report to WHO, and then WHO can certify. Take a very concrete example, the polio eradication campaign. We need all the populations to be vaccinated. So it's very important because we are very close to eradication of polio. We have to keep in mind that the efforts should be strong, and we never stop surveillance and having in mind that this virus could be back.
So when we eliminate polio, does that mean it'll be like smallpox, gone forever?
So it's important to remind that smallpox is the only human disease that has been eradicated. It was in 1980, so it was 45 years ago, and we are still trying to eradicate a second disease, maybe Guinea worm or polio.
Jerome, what can individuals and communities do to support disease elimination?
They can do a lot. Sometimes we could say, well, neglected tropical disease or some of these diseases, I'm not concerned because I am very far away, I'm 1,000 kilometers away, I am living in a rich country that is not affected, which is a wrong idea because it's like a fire. You could say, well, the fire is far away from my house, I don't need to call the fireman, but in fact, you could wait and then the fire will affect your house. So having this global behavior meaning, we are all committed, we are all affected. I think even individuals in rich countries could really convince their government that we need a global health architecture, that we need a global health surveillance, and we need a global commitment to fight communicable disease and tropical diseases. You can be strong ambassadors of public health, sharing messages, teaching people, reaching the unreachable of your communities. We are living on a very small planet, it's a small village. We all have a role to play.
Thank you, Jerome. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time, then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Live selikhulile la kaNgwane. Live la kaNgwane belinalo ligama lelivele likhona mandulo. Kepha ke kwahamba kwabonakala ukuthi live liyashintsha itoze likhone kubonakala ukuthi libitike kahle kwase kuthiwa iSwaziland. Emave ke onke lebekanawo lamagama lefanana nalela lakithi ase abuyela egameni lemlando. Nathi ke la Eswatini sinalo ligama bekunene kwekuthi live leSwatini useSwatini. Namuhla ke sithi asikumemetele ukuthi sekutawuvele kiko konke la kubhaliswa khona uvele kusale kubhaliswa ukuthi sekuseSwatini njoba singemaswati nje singabe sibita ligama lesingede salikhona nekulibita kahle bogogo nalabo bomkhulu abangakatholi lithuba babe solo bashwambuluta ukuthi sesitawuvule satiwe ngekuthi silive leSwatini kungasasilo leSwaziland bekunene.
Attention retailers, importers, clearing agents, and customs brokers. All television sets and decoders entering the Kingdom of Eswatini now require mandatory ESTVA authorization before customs clearance. No clearance without valid ESTVA import permit. Don't risk delays at the border. Submit your application 24 to 48 hours before your shipment arrives. We process complete applications in just 1 to 2 working days. Our QR-coded permits make the verification quick and easy. Always double-check your HS codes and quantities for smooth compliance. The process is simple. Step 1. Submit your completed application form. Annex A with product line items for TVs, decoders, and commercial invoice. Step 2. Eswatini TV reviews and approves. Step 3. Make payment and complete verification. Step 4. Receive your permit. Step 5. Clear customs smoothly at the border. Make sure you have all your required documents, a completed application form, Annex A detailing your product line items, commercial invoice, valid TV retailer license, and letter of authority if applicable. Our permits feature QR codes for easy border verification. For assistance, email us at license@eswatinitv.co.za or call our help desk. Apply before your shipment arrives. Ensure compliance and avoid delays. Remember, all TV sets and decoders entering the Kingdom of Eswatini must have a valid ESTVA import permit. Thank you. Act now.
Welcome back, and now for international news. An evacuation plan to enable hundreds of ships with some 11,000 seafarers stranded in the Gulf to sail through the Strait of Hormuz is underway after Iran and the U.S. reached a ceasefire deal, the United Nations Shipping Agency said on Tuesday. However, the long-term status of the waterway remains unclear. Iran wants a toll system implemented in the strait, while the U.S. is vehemently against this idea.
This Chinese sailor has been stranded in the Strait of Hormuz for more than 110 days. Now that the US and Iran have both confirmed that the waterway is open, his ship has begun preparations to resume sailing. The International Maritime Organization is overseeing the operation to evacuate the more than 11,000 seafarers blocked in the strait.
The large-scale operation will be carried out in close cooperation with Iran, Oman, and all other coastal states in the region, as well as the United States and the maritime industry.
Tehran has been using the strait as leverage in the conflict, blocking free passage and laying mines in the waterway. For now, the US and Iran have set up a communication line to ensure the safe passage of vessels. This animation shows the increased traffic on Tuesday, but Iranian officials are currently in discussions with Oman to work out a potential future toll system.
Situation in the Strait of Hormuz will not be the same as it was before the war. And definitely the arrangement for passage of vessels through the Strait of Hormuz will not be the same.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's currently on a tour visiting regional Gulf allies, has reiterated the US's opposition to the idea of any maritime service fees.
It's an international waterway. No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law. That's the way it is in international waterways all over the world, and that's the way we expect it'll be here.
Oil prices fell further on Wednesday as vessels continued to circulate in the strait. Talks are ongoing between Iran and the US to finalize a long-lasting peace agreement within the 60-day deadline laid out in the Memorandum of Understanding.
The U.S. Senate passed a largely symbolic resolution on Tuesday calling for an end to President Donald Trump's war with Iran, delivering a fresh rebuke to the White House as it tries to negotiate a lasting settlement with Tehran.
Yeas are 50, the nays are 48. The concurrent motion is agreed to.
It's an act of defiance against President Trump, but will it have any real legislative weight? On Tuesday, the US Senate passed a motion to block military action against Iran. It was the Senate's 10th vote on an Iran war powers measure this year, and the first one to pass.
Time after time, the vast majority of Senate Republicans sided with Trump and his war instead of the American people. The American people have paid the price for Trump's historic blunder in Iran. It'll go down in the history books as one of the worst foreign policy forays America has ever made, or any country has ever made.
4 Republicans voted with the Democrats, defying Trump over a war that has become increasingly unpopular with the American people. In a post on Truth Social, Trump was quick to respond.
The U.S. Senate decides to have a poorly timed and meaningless War Powers Act vote, telling the #1 sponsor of terror in the world that the United States doesn't like what I'm doing to them. 4 Republican losers voted with the Democrats.
The motion passed the House in the beginning of June, when 4 Republicans joined every Democrat to approve it in a 215 to 208 vote. But despite approval by both houses of Congress, the resolution is a concurrent one, meaning it doesn't carry the force of law and doesn't require the president's signature. It does put pressure on the White House to put an end to an unpopular conflict, however, and signals increasing division amongst Republicans, with the midterms just months away.
An Afghan Taliban delegation met EU officials in Brussels on Tuesday for the first time, an event rights groups denounced as legitimizing the Islamists, but the EU has defended as a step towards making it easier to repatriate failed asylum seekers.
The message from these rights campaigners was clear. On Tuesday, Amnesty International protested a visit to Brussels by a delegation from the Afghan Taliban, which neither the European Union nor Belgium recognizes.
We are quite literally in the realm of spitting in the face of the values supposedly upheld by the European Union and by Belgium, which claim to defend international law and human rights. While here they are compromising themselves with a regime that is utterly destructive of freedoms but tramples on human rights every day.
Brussels, however, defended the meeting, which centered on a potential deal to return failed asylum seekers to Afghanistan.
The EU is mandated by the Council to maintain operational engagement with the de facto authorities in Afghanistan. So these are technical level contacts. This does not mean recognition. This by any means does not mean recognition.
The visit comes amid a wider push to crack down on irregular migration in Europe and boost deportations. About 20 of the EU's 27 member states have expressed interest in returning some migrants without a right to stay to Afghanistan. Some governments have pushed ahead, with Germany deporting more than 100 Afghans with criminal convictions since 2024 and Austria following suit. Since returning to power in 2021, the Taliban have steadily curtailed rights, restricting women's freedom of movement, banning girls from education beyond primary school, and further enabling child marriage. Afghanistan is also in a deep humanitarian crisis. According to the World Food Programme, more than 17 million people, or 1/3 of the population, are food insecure, while the country is absorbing tens of thousands of people returning from Iran and Pakistan.
As Sudan's army celebrates a growing number of defections from the rival Rapid Support Forces, many victims of the country's brutal civil war fear former RSF commanders could escape accountability for atrocities allegedly committed under their watch. From Darfur and Khartoum, displaced civilians recount abuses and demand justice, even as defecting commanders insist they are prepared to face any legal claims against them.
In the Darfur town of Tawila, thousands of displaced people continue to shelter in makeshift camps after fleeing fighting and attacks across the region. Among them is Halima Ismail. She was forced to flee repeatedly as RSF units swept through villages around Al-Fasher.
There were 8 or 10 vehicles. 2 of them went to the market, and the rest moved towards the reservoir. Savannah himself was the leader. They went towards the reservoir. We don't know what they did there.
Savannah, also known as Ali Rizkala, was one of the most prominent RSF commanders in Darfur. He defected last month. He insists that anyone responsible for crimes should still face the law.
If I am accused personally, I myself, as Savannah, will present myself to justice with courage, dignity and self-respect. I am willing to die on the front lines, let alone die by the justice system.
For victims and relatives of those killed, however, the wounds remain raw. This man says his son was killed by RSF fighters and that any state decision to reconcile with former fighters does not erase his personal right to seek justice.
I will neither forgive nor pardon at all.
The army hopes defections will deepen divisions inside the RSF and strengthen its military position. But rights advocates warn that without a broader process of transitional justice, the grievances of victims could remain unresolved long after the fighting ends.
In Tunisia, inflation topped 5% last month, driven by a significant rise in food prices. One cause is supply chain issues and middlemen hiking prices. The crisis is exacerbated by continuing high unemployment rates, especially in marginalized regions far from the capital and the coast. Protests these days often feature slogans about the high cost of living.
In this market in Tunis, Mufida makes her living by trying to sell the leftover goods other vendors couldn't offload. She barely earns enough to get by.
I'm always worried about earning enough to recoup the cost of the goods. It's really not easy. I earn my living day by day.
Over April and May, the cost of tomatoes climbed to between 4 to 5 dinars, double December's price. Shoppers are having to cut back.
People don't buy by the kilo anymore. They buy individual items. That shows they can't afford it.
The inflation is down to a combination of things. Some of it's because of bad harvests, but also middlemen are hiking up prices.
Distributors at the wholesale market have a margin. Some sell strawberries for 3 dinars, other for 5. I only trade with 2 or 3 of them, so I have to take the price they request. I make up a bit by going to farmers directly for certain fruits, but the transportation costs me.
The government's attempts to regulate prices have had limited success, and higher prices are even more painful for those out of jobs. Unemployment figures are high and not going down. This dilapidated industrial zone is abandoned after courts ordered the closure of the paper recycling plant until it can be updated. 60 families have been affected by job losses.
The factory has been closed for 9 months. We can't keep up the maintenance, electricity and water have been cut off, and the roof was almost destroyed after heavy rains. I tried to reach officials, courts, ministers, and even the president's office. I don't understand why they left us in such a state. Why did they leave us closed when this is a region where people need jobs?
Many communities like this feel unseen and unsupported amidst the country's economic crises. The main national labor union is pushing the government to restart talks with them on the social and economic pressures felt by so many Tunisians.
A doctor who recently returned to France from a humanitarian mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo has tested positive for Ebola, marking the country's first confirmed case linked to the current outbreak, the health ministry said.
It's here in this Paris hospital and in this type of room that France's first Ebola patient is staying. The patient is a humanitarian doctor who had just returned to France after working in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the epicenter of the most recent Ebola outbreak. He was put in isolation immediately and is in a stable condition. Health experts say that even if the disease is serious, its spread is controllable.
We're dealing with transmission through contact. It's not like the COVID model where there could be indeed aerosol transmission from the plane, as you might remember. So obviously that does limit person-to-person transmission.
In the case of an infectious disease like Ebola, hospitals use negative pressure rooms as an isolation technique. Doctors change into or out of protective clothing in an anteroom, and the contaminated air inside the patient's room does not escape. As for people who were in contact with the patient, the French Health Ministry released a statement.
A thorough epidemiological investigation has been conducted to identify individuals who may have been in contact with the patient. These individuals will be contacted immediately by the regional health agency, will self-isolate at home for 21 days, and will be closely monitored during that time.
In 2014, during a major Ebola outbreak in West Africa, 2 nurses who were diagnosed with the virus abroad were transported to France. They both recovered.
Europe braced Wednesday for another day of an unprecedented heat wave that has smashed records in many countries and in a continent unused and ill-equipped to handle searing heat.
With a heat wave sweeping much of Europe, tourists in Rome made sure to stay hydrated as temperatures soared over 35 degrees Celsius. With the city on a red alert weather warning, the Italian authorities advised people to eat light meals and stay indoors during the hottest parts of the day.
I have my fan, I have my water bottle because it's metal and I can get ice from places and keep it cold, and I sit in the shade.
Spain also saw blistering temperatures, reaching into the 40s in some areas, with nearly all of the country on red alert on Tuesday. The epicenter of the heat was unexpectedly in the north of the country.
It was very hot yesterday. I'm training for the New York Marathon, so I ran 15 kilometers by the river. I was dying here. I mean, I had to run slower than usual.
While in the north of England, higher temperatures were welcomed by some. Whitby saw sunny weather peaking at 35 degrees Celsius, around double the usual level for this time of year.
I absolutely adore it. It's brilliant. It's just nice, especially in Whitby, because you've got the breeze, it's cool. It's not the 40-degree heat that you have down south, which is one of the reasons why we moved here in the first place, because we could see global warming coming. And we thought, if we're going to have hot summers, then we want to be by the beach.
A phenomenon known as a heat dome is causing the unrelenting high temperatures, as high pressure limits air from rising, like a lid on a pot.
France on Wednesday experienced its hottest day since measurements began in 1947, the National Weather Agency said, breaking a record set just a day earlier. Around 44 million of the nearly 67 million people in France are currently under the highest red alert level for heat.
Wednesday has been the hottest day in France since records began. The usually cooler north is now under red alert, along with 57 other departments, as people tried to cool down in Lille, with the mercury hitting 37 degrees.
It's bad. The effects of global warming, even in northern France, it's bad.
The few people who ventured out into the heat are paying the price.
Extreme sweating. Yeah, I've got a headache. It's like a blow to the head, your limbs swelling up, circulation problems, everything.
And it'll take more than just an ice cream to help.
We're exhausted. We're all in slow motion. It's hard.
Wednesday saw temperatures reach over 40 degrees in 50 French departments, mainly in the west and south. A record 43.8 degrees in Pissos, 43.4 in Angoulême, and 43.8 in Palluau. Paris too saw over 40 for the fourth time since records began, with parents seeking to protect young children who are more at risk from the heat. Mothers in this park were trying to cope however they could.
When we go out, we stick to water pistols and sprays to keep damp. Otherwise, it's impossible.
We stick to places with AC, but there aren't many.
Record temperatures and record call-outs for medical aid too. In the Paris suburbs, one doctor was going house to house with 9 visits like this one.
Bonjour, c'est le docteur.
The apartment felt like an oven, a serious risk for those already ill or in otherwise weak condition.
The body will suffer more through a lack of water. A recent study showed that dehydration could increase the chances of having a stroke or a heart attack.
Saumur in western France saw over 43 degrees. The town has broken heat records on successive days, and authorities have now set up an air-conditioned space for those in need.
At least it's more bearable. You can read a book, doze a little bit. You feel like you're getting a little better.
On Thursday, a record 72 departments will be on red heat alerts across France.
As one of Europe's southernmost nations, Spain is no stranger to extreme heat. So how does it manage? Following devastating floods in 2024, the country has inaugurated a number of measures aimed at reducing the impact of heat waves on its workforce, from adapting working hours to even providing a maximum 4 days of paid leave for climate-related difficulties.
Coming on stronger and earlier, Spain is no stranger to heat waves, and it's taking action by necessity. In this Barcelona park, during the summer, groundskeepers start 45 minutes earlier and quit an hour and 45 minutes earlier, a policy now in place for several years. The big development this year, a connected bracelet that measures body temperature. The city has issued them to 1,500 of its outdoor workers.
It detects if we're getting close to heat stroke. If it vibrates, we stop and take a break.
Spain is in Europe's vanguard of adapting to climate hazards following the trauma of 2024's catastrophic floods in the Valencia region, in which 230 people died. On that day, despite a red alert, some businesses prevented their employees from going home early. Since then, the country's socialist government has instituted climate leave, a maximum of 4 paid days off during the highest alerts to limit travel. But data on its implementation has yet to come in, and few outdoor workers are even aware of it. Unions, meanwhile, point out the measure comes with plenty of restrictions.
There has to be a declared force majeure, a legally defined imminent and serious risk. Authorities have to issue a restriction on work-related travel.
Tuesday was Spain's hottest day of the week so far, with 5 provinces on red alert and temperatures of up to 46 degrees Celsius.
Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on June 23rd that his government would continue its work despite mounting political pressure following the corruption conviction of his former transport minister a day earlier. His ruling Socialist Workers' Party faces several court cases involving allegations of graft. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has not been named in any of the cases to date, but more than a dozen people, including his wife and brother and an influential former socialist premier, have been implicated.
He came to power 8 years ago, pledging to clean up politics on the heels of a corruption-plagued centre-right government. But Pedro Sanchez's inner circle has become embroiled in graft allegations of its own. On Monday, his transport minister was sentenced to 24 years in prison for a slew of offences involving corruption. An unusually long sentence reflecting the accumulation of felonies, the judge said, including kickbacks from face mask purchases during the COVID-19 pandemic and the damage to public trust. It was the first verdict in a series of court cases linked to the ruling Socialist Party, including one involving Sanchez's wife, Begoña Gomez, whom a judge ordered on Saturday to stand trial on charges of influence peddling. She's accused of using her position to secure sponsors for a university master's degree program she directed. Sanchez has called the case against her part of a smear campaign by conservative political opponents.
As I have always said, all I ask of the justice system is that it delivers justice. Let justice be done. I am convinced that time will put everything and everyone in their rightful place.
But it doesn't stop there. Former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, who's widely seen as Sanchez's political mentor, is also under investigation over alleged influence peddling in the bailout of a Spanish airline during the pandemic. Zapatero denies wrongdoing, and Sanchez said Friday he supported his predecessor's presumption of innocence.
I understand that he will provide explanations at the appropriate time, especially considering, logically, how this entire process unfolds. But in any case, I have spoken with him. He is calm and certainly has the full support and backing of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party.
Sanchez's brother, David Sanchez, is also under investigation for allegedly securing his public job through nepotism. The case, as well as the one against Sanchez's wife, is based on allegations from far-right group Manos Limpias. As the probes have stacked up, the opposition has called for an early election. Sanchez himself has not been named in any of the cases and has repeatedly rejected calls to step down before his term ends in August 2027, arguing that his government should be judged on its record in office.
Three candidates backed by New York Mayor Zoran Namdani won Democratic primary elections for seats in the U.S. House of Representatives on Tuesday, according to U.S. media projections, an outcome that showcased Mamdani's rising influence on the Democratic Party.
It's the latest sign of an ascendant political movement. A clean sweep by Zoran Mamdani-backed candidates in the New York House primaries, after the city's mayor lent some of his star power to three progressives, including Daria-Liza Avila-Chevalier, a relative political newcomer who once helped organize pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia University.
I'm so excited to get to work and to bring all of you with me to Washington. To be fighting the fight that we have been fighting at the federal level.
The Middle East was also a key issue in New York's 10th congressional district. Former city comptroller Brad Lander, who also got Mamdani's endorsement, defeated two-term incumbent Daniel Goldman by calling for an end to U.S. military aid to Israel. While Goldman was backed by pro-Israel groups, including AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Please join me in introducing your next Congress member, Brad Lander.
Our party needs to admit that Joe Biden's Hug Bibi strategy was a catastrophic failure. I believe it made us complicit in genocide.
Over in the 7th congressional district, Mamdani-backed Claire Valdez also beat the Democratic establishment choice. All three Mamdani allies are expected to win their blue districts in November's midterm elections.
It's about time that we have new and fresh faces in Congress that are really going to fight for the people of this congressional district.
Highlights the Democratic Party's debate over a centrist or a progressive future, a key flashpoint ahead of the midterms.
Now that Keir Starmer has said he's stepping down as Prime Minister, there's only one name that's circulating to take his place, but Andy Burnham still has to be officially anointed in a vote of Labour Party members. Starmer has said that he wants the new leader in place by 1st of September when Parliament returns from recess.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles.
There was a loud cheer of approval from Labour lawmakers as Andy Burnham was sworn in as an MP. He's now seen as a frontrunner to become the party's new leader and, if successful, the UK's next Prime Minister. But it's not a done deal yet. Labour's ruling body, the National Executive Committee, will decide the timetable of the leadership contest. Outgoing Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said he wants nominations to begin on July 9th. Any Labour MP wanting to stand will have to get the backing of at least 20% of the party's lawmakers. If only one candidate meets the criteria, they automatically take the leadership without a vote. Wes Streeting, the former health secretary, who was seen as a potential challenger, has now stepped aside.
Andy Burnham, with his campaign in Makefield, won back a part of the country that only weeks ago had overwhelmingly rejected Labour, which shows that if Labour changes, we can still win. I think Andy is the person to lead us to do that.
Far-right Reform UK party leader Nigel Farage is calling for a snap election.
And if the next Prime Minister is the new MP for Makerfield, Andy Burnham, he didn't even stand at the last election on any manifesto at all. And I really do think that my call for there to be a general election as soon as is possible, I think you'll find a lot of support for that.
Burnham is seen by many in his party as the best person to defeat reform at the polls. The next general election must be held by August 2029, but the British Prime Minister can call one before then if they choose to do so.
Ukraine has stepped up strikes on Russian infrastructure and resources with the aim of choking off its war machine. And as part of that, it's been using a new drone powered by artificial intelligence that seemed to be giving it the upper hand over 4 years into Russia's invasion.
Scenes like this have multiplied in recent weeks along roads and highways throughout Russian-occupied Ukraine. From tankers to armoured vehicles, if it's Russian, it's methodically targeted. The Ukrainian military has been trying to starve its adversary's war machine of vital resources by turning transport routes into death traps. Behind much of that effort, Ukraine's new Hornet drone, which is sowing terror behind the Russian lines. Now, the armed forces of Ukraine has given journalists a closer look.
The fuselage and wings are made of polystyrene to make it as light as possible. We use it on long-range targets or to hit their logistics.
The Hornet can fly at over 100 kilometers an hour and is remarkably stealthy. A US invention, it was perfected in Ukraine, weighs just 5 kilos and can hit targets at ranges from 150 to 200 kilometers away. But its real novelty is that it uses onboard artificial intelligence to make its strikes.
Communication lost.
Here you can see our pilot has seen his target. Then, that little orange mark, that's the AI confirming it's identified the target itself. So the pilot gives the order, then the drone follows its target on its own and strikes without human intervention.
With a price tag of just 5,000 euros, the Ukrainian military can now bomb the Russian army's logistical routes several times a day, and the consequences are already becoming clear, particularly in Crimea, the territory Russia annexed in 2014, with not just major fuel shortages and long queues at petrol stations, but fuel rationing in effect, sparking a panic at the region's supermarkets.
There is no buckwheat and almost no rice, and almost all the pasta is gone. People have gone mad with the fuel shortage.
The Russians have sought, but not yet found, a way to intercept drones like the Hornet. And if that continues, it'll likely keep Russia on the back foot, nearly 4.5 years after it invaded.
And that marks the end of our international news. We go for an ad break and return shortly.
Be sure to catch Business Watch every Wednesday between 2 p.m. to 3 p.m, where we feature the latest updates on business news, market trends, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders, as well as insights on emerging small and medium enterprises in the commercial sector. Business Watch, your business leader.
Right, welcome back. You're still watching Kusile Breakfast Show, our final interview segment now as countries continue to grapple with emerging infectious diseases, climate-related health risks, and the lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic. The focus has shifted from reacting to health emergencies to building systems that can prevent them, right? So central to that efforts are National Public Health Institutes, known as the NPHIS, specialized institutes that coordinate disease surveillance, laboratory services, emergency preparedness, as well as public health research. Eswatini is hosting the 5th annual Southern Africa National Public Health Institutes regional meeting under the theme National Public Health Institutes, the cornerstone in advancing Africa's health security and sovereignty. Now, the gathering provides an opportunity to explore how stronger institutions can help countries detect outbreaks earlier, to also coordinate responses more effectively and build resilient health systems. Joining us this morning, Samgelsiwe Shabangunzimanze, the Eswatini CDC Program Officer championing the establishment of the Eswatini CDC, as well as Dr. Peter Kumpalume, who is going to be the regional representative for the Africa Centers for Disease Control, as well as Prevention for Southern Africa. A very good morning to the both of you. Thank you so much for affording us your time this morning. A very important initiative indeed. Every time we speak preparedness, I'm always reminded of the COVID-19 pandemic and how much that word was being used around that time. So it comforts me to learn that we learned our lesson and we are preparing ourselves even much better for anything else that can be an outbreak. Maybe let me start with you, Doctor. Why are national public health institutes increasingly viewed as the foundation of Africa's health security architecture?
So thank you very much for inviting Africa CDC to this program. So the most important thing to remember is that in Africa CDC, we want to champion what we call the Africa Health Security and Sovereignty Agenda. It has 5 pillars. Pillar number 2 is about pandemic preparedness and response. So, anchored in pandemic prepared and response is systems that can help governments and institutions to prepare for the next pandemic. And within Africa CDC, the establishment of National Public Health Institute is critical in housing the preparedness and the response initiatives of every government in case there is an emergency, a health emergency that comes to our borders.
Yeah. Maybe coming to you, Samge, then how do we as Eswatini, in terms of our vision for National Public Health Institute, how do we align really with this vision that he's adhering to?
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for having us for this show. Actually, from the Africa Union and ultimately Africa CDC, the description that Dr. Peter has given us, then their mandate is looking at continental health security. So we all know that from continents, we have the member states that are making up these continental initiatives. So that's where we come in. As member states now, we are establishing National Public Health Institutes, which will be a mechanism to feed towards continental health security and ultimately leading to continental health security and sovereignty. Yeah. So in this case, we are hosting this 5th annual meeting, and it came at the right time because countries are at varying levels with their maturity with regards to establishing these National Public Health Institutes. Yeah. And we are one of the countries that are moving towards establishing. And then you may ask yourself, when do we say we are fully established? That is when you have a legal framework that is actually establishing the entity. So we have countries that are already ahead, and we have countries that are working towards, and we have those that are still going to try, still doing those efforts to try moving towards those
I'm happy you end your session there by, stating the fact that there's countries that have made some strides, countries that are trying to be at par, and those that are really, really, below at this point. Maybe an opportunity, Doctor, to highlight some of those gaps that exist within these member states, that make strong NPHIs so essential.
So from Africa CDC perspective, and we are not alone in this. We also work with other CDCs like the US CDC and the other CDCs. So we know that public health institutes are stronger when they have a legal mandate. So in institutions, in countries where they are not established, one of the key gaps is the legal mandate. Because if you don't have that, then you don't exist. The next thing is you can't have established public health institute, but if they are not funded appropriately, then they cannot respond appropriately. So we also notice that there are some gaps, particularly when it comes to funding. And the critical component of everything else, you may have the money, you may have the legal mandate, but if you don't have trained workforce to deal with those emergencies, then you may not be able to respond appropriately. So there are gaps in the legislation, there are gaps in funding, and there are gaps in the workforce, depending on the level of maturity of that public health institute in those member states.
Yeah, so 3 key pillars: legal mandate, money, very important. Yes. The money is informed by the legal mandate, as you put it, as well as skilled workforce. So let's say we have all of that in Eswatini, in what we call Eswatini CDC, right, Samge? Then how do you perform in strengthening disease surveillance, outbreak response, as well as public health coordination?
Okay. What is the cornerstone of the NPHI that we are envisioning is public health intelligence. Okay. That means that...
Break that down, public health intelligence.
Yes. Public health intelligence is us having the core functions for monitoring, which means we're able to identify early conditions of concern or public health threats of concern. We are able to collect the data, to connect it, and to synthesize it. Having data is something else, but understanding what it means to inform intervention is something else again. Yeah. So we intend through this intelligence to then be able to interpret and most importantly disseminate this public health information to all the sectors that may need it. We'll go back to COVID-19. it was mainly a health-centered condition, but you will agree with me that even the transport sector needed to know what was happening so that they can inform how they respond to this public health threat. So the main gap that we have is public health intelligence, which is centered on science, because the evolution of these microorganisms, there's science behind it. The transmission, what informs the transmission patterns, there's science behind it. You will recall during the COVID-19 that we are having various strains of COVID-19, and each strain has its own characteristics, you know. So for you to be able to deal with that strain, you need to know the characteristics so that you can have interventions that better inform how to deal with that particular strain.
Just how sufficient is our public health intelligence right now? How intelligent is it as we speak right now? Because yes, COVID-19 is the most relatable one because it was in Eswatini. But if we're speaking preparedness, and before we go to responding, preparedness and early warning systems, I think we can also allude to the most immediate one, or the most relative one, being hantavirus, even though it didn't come here. But in terms of preparedness, I think we can apply what you are talking about. Just how sufficient is this public health intelligence that you are alluding to?
Okay, what we have currently is, I would say, siloed approaches, because the mechanism that we are routing for the Eswatini CDC is anchoring it on One Health DNA. What we have currently is, for example, there are 3 key sectors within One Health. There's the Ministry of Health, there's the Animal Health, and then there's the environment, of which, when we're talking environment in our aspect, country context, it's the Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Authority and the Ministry of Natural Resources. So we have the mechanisms that are there as sectors. But then now the bigger gap is, because most of these threats, there's that interconnectedness, which then brings the One Health aspect of things. Now, because we are interconnected, for example, when we're looking at cholera, human health mainly deals directly with the human capital. We don't want to see people coming in and out of hospital. So, which is why oftentimes it's the human health that is making much of the shouting. But then for us to effectively fight cholera, for example, water is a very instrumental mechanism in transmitting it. So we can keep mopping the floor, treating patients, until we have systems that brings us together, for example, with the water sector, so that we can be able then to break the chain of transmission. So that is where it comes in to say we need a platform where we can convene and look at the science that is contributing to or perpetuating the spread of public health threats. And then as these sectors, the platform that we are looking into is Eswatini CDC for the science and for the generation of public health intelligence, so that we can collectively inform interventions that can then lead to us being able to effectively respond and control public health threats.
So I suppose on that siloed approach, that agenda, so to speak, sits well within, when we're talking cholera, by way of example, with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy, the WASH department, or whatever they call it. That is where, I just needed to really understand that multi-sectoral approach. But right now it's siloed, but what you're working on is when this thing is fully implemented, it is just one mechanism. Doctor, let me come back to you. How do NPHIs improve a country's ability to prevent, to detect, as well as respond to outbreaks?
So maybe the first bit is to start on what Samke has just said. He said how intelligent is disease intelligence at the moment. So if you look at across member states, and Eswatini is no different, maybe 10, 15 years ago, they did not have a data center. We call that a public health emergency operating center. Now they do. This is a place where people can report in real time, and you can see it. We in Southern Africa, RCC, so our headquarters in this region in Lusaka, we can see what is happening in Lusaka, what is happening in Eswatini. And similarly at headquarters, in real time, as long as somebody puts in the data, we know. It basically means that as a continent, we are connected. We know what is happening in the member state, and therefore how best we can respond. So if you look at surveillance, it has improved. If you look at data collection and sharing, it has improved. This is really how NPHIs respond better to and prepare better for emergencies. so if you look at surveillance, because the anchor of public health preparedness and response is somebody knowing what is happening in the different corners of the country. That's where surveillance comes in. And the next bit is being able to detect. You can see, but what are you seeing? Okay, so what Sam K talked about being able to know this is a cholera, is this strain, you need lab systems. Okay, and that's where again NPHIs come in, because they coordinate not just within the country but also with other member states. So the stronger NPHI or the stronger CDC, depending on what people call it in that particular country, connected to another NPHI and connected to the region and connected to the continent, makes everybody safer. And that's how these NPHIs protect and prepare countries for pandemics.
Yeah, I want us to get to what the theme also talks about. It's becoming somewhat of a buzzword, if you will. You hear about it in agriculture, food sovereignty. You hear it in even a country's economy, the country's sovereignty. But here, we are now talking health sovereignty as a siloed approach, so to speak. What does sovereignty mean in practical terms here when it comes to public health?
So let me begin by, again, referring back to COVID-19.
Sure.
Because COVID-19 exposed everybody, even the developed nations.
The world.
But for us, particularly us in Africa, we were the last to get any medical treatment.
Sure.
Vaccines. We were the very last. Even if we had the money, we could not buy, because logistics were a bottleneck. You couldn't buy the medicines that you wanted, because on the other side, they are holding it for their member states.
Right.
And of course, shipping routes could not be open, because everybody is afraid of this. And then on top of that, most of our finances for health were coming from elsewhere, not from our member states. What does that mean? It means that we are not in charge of our health systems. So what the Africa Union, through Africa CDC, has been calling on member states to say, let us decide what we want for our health systems. Okay, so we are at the table discussing, not at the table being discussed. That's number one, we are in charge. The second thing is, let's make sure that we, when it comes to response, we lead, not anybody else. Now, to do that, you need enough finances. So those finances must be domestically realized. And finally, you must be able to have enough medical countermeasures, so medicines and supplies, within the country. So for Africa CDC, must be within the continent. That's when you can be in charge of our health services. That's where the sovereignty is. So nobody is in charge apart from the member states.
Yeah.
We are in charge. That's what the sovereignty
So it goes back to
in.
what you mentioned earlier, even on this particular salient point. The money, the legal mandate, the money and the skilled force are going to be essential for us being independent.
Absolutely.
Right, in that regard. Let me come back to you. Let's come back to Eswatini. Just how would a stronger national public health institute benefit an ordinary Liswati beyond times of crisis?
Okay. To start with, I mentioned earlier that what we are looking at protecting is public health security and health, the health of our people in our countries.
Sure.
And in our case as Eswatini, ultimate health means productivity for everyone. It means children are able to go to school. It means we are not disrupted during our daily endeavors. We work, and if we are not well because our environment maybe is contributing, or because we are eating food that is contributing to our illnesses, then it means we are going to be having issues. So amongst the pillars of Eswatini CDC, what we have is workforce development, as Dr. Peter alluded to earlier. Those are opportunities for us to showcase our talents. We have quite a number of people who are skilled, and when we looking back at how Eswatini CDC was given birth to. His Majesty was addressing students in Zambia in July 2023 when he mentioned for the first time in public the establishment of an Eswatini Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So that says a lot. He's saying, go out there, find information and come back home, because the information that we are looking out for here is what we need to strengthen our health systems back home in Eswatini. So it's an initiative for everyone, and most importantly, we need research as a cornerstone of this initiative, and we can have our young people contributing to that. I'll say, for example, when students are conducting their bachelor's degrees, their master's degrees, there are projects that they conduct at the final stage of their course. So those can even contribute towards this. For example, if as the health sector we can identify the problems, share them with the universities that we have here, so that the students can then use real problems to inform the research projects that they are conducting. So that will be contributing. So everyone can contribute in a way towards this, because at the end of the day, if we are talking health security, it's for everyone, all of us, which is why we are going multi-sectoral in that regard.
Doctor, you have a vantage point here. You have seen the countries that are developed in this regard, the ones that are trying to develop, and I think that's where we come in ourselves. Just how imperative is this development for employment just within, this particular agenda? I think she just mentioned that, we have a lot of this, skilled workforce. Some of them are sitting at home. If we have the laboratories and everything that you've been mentioning, just how much in terms of job opportunities does this create?
So actually, we can look at it from different perspectives, and I will take the best examples from across the continent. So once you establish a National Health Public Institute, they have a legal mandate, and the legal mandate includes that they can raise their own funds. So they're still a public entity. They're still reporting to the Ministry of Health, but they have some kind of autonomy that they can raise funds for themselves. What normally happens is that institute creates job opportunities for different cadres, mostly in research. So it could be as low as, so not a low, but as simple as surveillance, or it could be clinical research. So you want to bring in new medicines, so they are championing that. But also at the cutting edge is research and development. And I'll give the example of a member state within the southern region. That's what they have done. At the moment, they are sponsoring 33 PhD students, 25 master's students. And they're using resources that they have generated themselves. The advantage of that is when they finish, they'll be able to apply for even bigger grants and employ even more people, and bring in new knowledge when it comes to how you deal with emergencies. And just to add to what Samke said about, in your question, how does an average citizen benefit from this? If we go back to COVID-19, things were closed, shops were closed, because at that moment we didn't know how to handle this. How do we handle this emergency?
Right.
But when we have knowledge, and that knowledge is shared, you know how best to approach any emergency. So it leads to less disruption in terms of services, less disruption to the economy, but also it means that people can continue receiving treatment because you have prepared for it. So it is an advantage to the ordinary citizen.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier that speaks to just how Africa is one, really. And it's funny, we were talking before the interview started, and you said it's good that South Africa qualified. We have a representative for Southern Africa. And it's just a reminder, especially with what is going on in South Africa right now. Maybe I'm going to be diplomatic mentioning that, but that sometimes we shouldn't really look at borders, because when pandemics and outbreaks come, they don't respect borders, right? So just how important is this cross-border data sharing as well as the coordinated surveillance, as you put it, among Southern African countries? How essential is that?
It is actually very critical because our protection from emergencies is dependent on our neighbor. Okay, it dependent on how strong Eswatini is. It's dependent on how strong South Africa is, and sharing that information is very critical. I'll give you a practical example. At the moment, there is Ebola in DR Congo and Uganda. What DR Congo did was to share with the world that we have this emergency. And they also shared the sequence. So we know the kind of strain. We know how best to test it. You know, if you want to investigate whether you have it in your borders.
Sure.
And you know how best to treat those that have been affected by it. Okay? Without that sharing of information, Zambia wouldn't be prepared on how to deal with this should it come to their border. Malawi wouldn't, Angola wouldn't, South Africa wouldn't. So cross-border collaboration is very, very important because it helps the other member states get prepared for what may come from across the border.
Samge, the One Health approach has been mentioned quite significantly in this meeting. Perhaps not an entirely new word. In how, you know, the Ministry of Health has been trying to approach a lot of the issues around it. How is Eswatini working across human, animal, and environmental health? Because you mentioned those three points, those three health sectors to improve preparedness.
Okay, what we have, we are trying to strengthen the governance because for sectors to come together, there has to be a mandate, first of all. That vision that unites them. And I mentioned earlier that there's that interconnectedness with that cholera example. So the vision that we have is ultimately being able to actually produce like situation reports. If we're to be having cholera pandemic, for example, we would provide a situation report that gives both sides. So then it means we have a call and we have a mandate, and our mandate is health security. And what we have done is there was an initiative where directors from the sectors were invited, and it was discussed. So this health security was discussed, and there was an agreement to say, let's formulate a One Health Directors Forum. Now, this One Health Directors Forum is the operating system for Eswatini CDC. We also have a task team, but this One Health Directors Forum informs the task team. And whatever it is that we are strategizing around, we run it past the directors for confirmation, and then we are able to implement that. So already we have draft documents that we have prepared, which is the One Health Charter, which is outlining the governance mechanisms for our Eswatini CDC. We also have a draft One Health Forum with support from Africa CDC that we have established. And it's also outlining the activities that we need to do. We have had initiatives like the Pandemic Fund application where we met as sectors to try and come up with the proposal that will address these multi-sectoral or cross-cutting issues. So to that extent, we have even taken this further to say, let's inform the PSCs within the sectors of what we are doing. You will recall that the meeting was opened by one of the PSCs from the One Health sector who was representing the One Health Forum. So that's how far we have gone with regards to involving them. And then we have the One Health Secretariat, where each of these ministries has a technical officer that is a link between the ministry and Eswatini CDC for ease of communication and for making sure that they are involved in whatever it is that we are doing in this process. We are doing it with them because wherever they need to consult, they do so with their sectors, but we are moving as a unit. Hence, even the multi-sectoral representation that was there during the opening ceremony of the meeting.
Right, so looking ahead, Doctor, what does success look like, you know, for Africa's health security agenda if we really look over the next 5 to 10 years?
So in Africa CDC, the Africa Health Security and Sovereignty Agenda was born out of the weaknesses that we identified a few years ago. So in the next 5 years, this is what we hope will happen, that member states will increase their financing for health, and that member states will have established public health institutes to help them prepare for pandemics, that member states would have signed into what they call African Pooled Procurement Mechanism, where African states pool resources, they buy all their medicines through Africa CDC. That way they buy it cheaper, but also it is within the continent. And finally, but one more thing is that we would have increased local manufacturing within the continent. So we don't depend on buying from across the seas. We are buying here. And the final thing is that we are utilizing data systems to make sure that we inform each other, we make decisions that are based on data, not just feelings.
Yeah.
So for us from within Africa CDC, if member states can increase their financing, establish their NPHIs, and use data systems, improve local manufacturing, and adopt this African pooled mechanism, we would say we have achieved what we wanted to achieve in the next 5 years.
I want to ask the both of you, from everything that you've mentioned that is going to essentially, highlight that we are successful over the next 5 to 10 years. All of that sounds like key priorities, right? Mm-hmm. But surely there's one of them that is the most, I suppose, key. Which one would you say that is? I can make my own assumption and say it is being independent from having to procure, let's say, vaccines, by examples, from across the seas, as you put it. Because during COVID-19, lives were on the line. And we were waiting to be, I suppose, like in modern terms, a side chick, the last priority, right? Because they were focused on their internal situation first. What is the most immediate and urgent one out of all those key priorities?
You want me to start?
You can start.
Okay. All right. It's a very difficult one because the reason that we have those 5 key pillars in Africa CDC, Africa Self-Security Agenda, is that they are all important. But if I may use my own understanding, I would say that if we as member states take charge of their health systems, then we would have achieved everything. In taking charge, it means that you do all the other things.
Okay.
They are in
check
place.
All the boxes.
Oh, tick all the boxes.
Yeah.
So we are these decision makers and not dependent on anybody else to make decisions for our own health.
Our time
member
has run
states.
out. I'm sorry to cut you, but some guy I want to give you in 30 seconds. Just how long is this meeting? When does it end? And how optimistic are you about the results? Just under 30 seconds.
Okay, the meeting was running from 23 to 25 June.
Okay.
Yes, and we really are appreciating the opportunity that we've been given as a country and to host, and we hope that we are going to see the gains in the future from these engagements that have been going on.
Dr. Peter Samge, thank you for your time. Thank you to our viewers as well for staying with us.
Thank you.
This has been your program. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.